Hi everybody, we are Bob and Suzanne Robertson, greeting you from Amman, Jordan, where we have been living and in ministry for 48 years. We thought we'd tell you a little bit about ourselves, how we got here and why we've stayed here. We both came to Christ in the 60s through the ministry of Campus Crusade for Christ. I was at the University of Minnesota. I grew up in Minneapolis and came to Christ there. And Bob grew up in Salinas, California, and arrived at Cal a radical atheist and left Cal a radical Christian. Through the ministry of Campus Crusade, we were really grounded in discipleship, personal evangelism, all of that personal soul care and soul work that is so essential to sharing the gospel. And we have used that all through our lives in every location, wherever we have been. It's part of kind of what we do. We were married in 1969 in Columbus, Ohio, and got in a little VW bug and drove across the United States until we arrived in Berkeley. And when we arrived there, God was obviously doing a new work, an amazing and creative, exciting work, reaching out to what became the Jesus people through many, many interesting efforts of lots of different people. We became a part of what was then called the Christian World Liberation Front, and lived near the campus and really worked street level ministry for over a year there. And at the end of the year, a pastor came and said, I see you all as set up for long-term ministry. Maybe you should go to seminary. And we decided that would be a good idea because we really did feel called to full-time ministry. So we got back in the VW bug and went toward the mountains of Colorado and Denver Seminary. And there we really found our long-term, lifetime challenge. And Bob will tell you about that.
In Denver, we didn't seem to fit in a normal church, so we met a group of people like us and a pastor who had had a lot of experience in Hyde Park in Chicago, in the inner city, and our house was kind of in the inner city part of Denver, the near west side they call it. Halfway houses, people down on their luck, a lot of Hispanics. And we actually the church started in our house and was there for the time I was in seminary there. Suzanne was working with a psychiatric hospital for adolescents, so we were a bit far apart in those things. But at the seminary, some of the most challenging things that happened to my mind, in addition to my education there, were some of the missionaries who would come and speak at chapel, particularly some from Pakistan, and then one in particular from North Africa. And that's where I was met with the huge challenge of Islam, and also the whole tragedy of the Middle East, the cradle of Christianity, North Africa, what happened there. And as God worked with us for finally we decided that's where we wanted to go. And we left with our 6-month-old girl, 2 duffel bags, and no mission organization, just our local little church there in Denver helped support us. So we got to Amman, and we lived in a lower income part of the city, behind a little small evangelical church there. Our bedrooms overlooked a very busy street, and actually the door of the mosque was just right across the street from our house. So that was 7 years there in that little house. And the most important part of our philosophy of ministry has been the word incarnational. So we wanted to immerse ourselves in the culture, the Arabic language, reading, speaking proficiently. Our girls were put in an Arabic school all the way through high school. And we really wanted to minister at street level, which is what we've been doing for 48 years now. Eyeball to eyeball with people, evangelism, discipleship, in the church, both Christians, but a lot of the majority community, families, individuals, and we've had tens of thousands of visits with Arabs, even in their homes, our homes, shops for me and the men. And one of the most exciting ministries that's been happening in our church in the last 6 or 7 years has been among the refugees from Syria, but mainly Iraq in our neighborhood. And it has caused just a great, huge spiritual blessing for all of us in the church, as many of these have come to know Christ. So, Suzanne?
You might be wondering what happened to that little 6-month-old girl, baby. She was joined by her sister in Jordan, born in Jordan, about 3 years later. So our first daughter, Elizabeth, has now been married and has been living with her husband and ministering in Cairo for the last 23 years. They just had their little anniversary of that, teaching and ministering with the Arab Evangelical Church there in Egypt. Our second, and they have two sons, Calvin and Sammy, who are now in university. Our second daughter, Jessica, has worked with her husband, Dan, with the U.S. State Department in various places. They have been appointed to Yemen, to Alexandria, Egypt, to Cairo, Egypt, recently to 4 years in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and now are just starting their new work at the embassy there in Nairobi, Kenya, and they have 2 children, Emma and Theo, who are in high school.
We want to leave you with a couple of prayer requests, something very easy to remember. The first one is related to our country. Jordan, when we first went there, was 10% Christian, mainly nominal, and 90% Muslim. Today it is 98% Muslim and the 2% Christian. So one of the most prayer I pray every day is the one that Paul asked for the church in Colossia to pray for him, that Colossians chapter 4, verse 3, that God may open a door for our message, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, and that I may proclaim it clearly as I should. Clearly. That's a key word with people from the majority population religion there. So open doors. The second thing is the word remain or stay. You remember when Jesus crossed over to the other side, over to Jordan with his disciples in a boat, and a person came down from the mountains there, and he was the Gadarene demoniac, the first Jordanian Jesus met. Jesus cast the demons out of him, and he wanted to go with Jesus. And Jesus said, no, you stay here. Go back and tell your people what great things God has done for you. The key word here is remain, stay. One of the very difficult things to deal with where we are is the great hemorrhage of the church from all of the Middle East, wherever the church is. And so we want people to stay there, no matter how difficult it is, and to build God's kingdom there in Jordan, in the Middle East. Thank you.
We want to thank you so much for all the years that you have been a part of our ministry through finances and through prayer. And we love you. We couldn't have done it without you. And bye-bye. We'll see you soon, we hope.